Right, hello. Welcome to another edition of Low Code Campfire. This is episode number 141 for April 5, 2024. I picked out this odd topic, getting rid of history, and took me a minute to even remember why I did that, but I remember now. So we'll get into that. Welcome. This is an event we do every Friday this hour. It's an opportunity for us to get together, talk about techniques, challenges, experiences, whatever's going on in the world of low code and plant an app. So bring something to show and get ready to have a good discussion. This is something that we put out on YouTube. So youtube.com/plantanapp. You can subscribe by using that QR code or just wandering out to YouTube. But lots and lots of very good content from the years. We run this agenda. We always say hello and introduce ourselves, but then beyond that, we go around the campfire. We always do first call, and then we get into some of these other things. So we'll be talking about that, and then in an hour or so, we'll turn off the recording and go into our Afterglow segment, and where we just hang out for a few more minutes and enjoy each other's company. So do engage with us, jump in, show and tell. It's a very informal format. We do ask that you mute if you have noise going on behind you. And let's see, you can submit questions and topics in advance, either using the links in the emails that we send to you or with this QR code. Patrick is back from his wanderings, and so we're glad to have him with us today in Low Code Campfire.
Hello.
Patrick,
Hello,
did you get a
Patrick.
chance to
How you
check
doing?
out the fantastic story that I generated for you?
I didn't yet, no. I want to.
Yeah, you probably had a few things to come back to. Anyway, everyone, hello.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
So we start out with first call. Anyone got something that you want to just address right off the bat? Got 4 or 5 interesting topics, very easy to put together today. So we can dive in, but I'd really rather talk about what you want to talk about. All right, here we go. Stop me between topics if something comes to mind. So first off, we started beta 1 week ago, and I don't know that I think as of yesterday, there weren't any reports, but just wondering if anyone's making any progress or plans towards doing 126 beta. Patrick, I know you have plans. We all have to dig in internally.
Yeah. Yep.
I usually dig in there too. I'm sorry I haven't done that yet, but it's on the radar and it's important.
This is the part where I move my microphone just a little bit closer. Good morning, Jen. Thanks for joining.
Hello.
All right. Well, we'll keep asking about that. I found a little something and I reported something, so always an adventure when we come out with a new version. Campfire contributions. I had a question which ended and a support ticket which ended up generating some I like to, if I can take the work and that I'm doing and add and help someone else along the way and kind of make it be a thing. I'll put it into Campfire, the campfire.com website or campfire.plantanapp.com. Anyone listening along after the fact here and want to participate in the Campfire, this is a common website that we put small techniques, individual things that can be built into a larger whole. So you can request access to this just by participating in this event on Fridays. But yeah, the question was about I've got a lot of I've got some history records and I want to clean up the history records, and how do I go about that? And I also threw in how do you discover what's going on, what tables have a large amount of history records. So this is kind of an all-in-one contribution. So first of all, there's a workflow that I threw together. It is a SQL query that generates this. So sorted backwards in order by the number of records, all the tables that are in your database. And so if you're looking for where can what's gotten out of hand, this is a way to find um, record counts. So that's just a SQL query that ends up returning a table. And so you could, for example, put this workflow, just copy it and import it onto your system, and it will produce a report like this that you can either just look at interactively or put on a form or something like that. I guess just to be educational about that. The SQL query is kind of interesting because it iterates through and uses dynamic SQL to produce the report. And so it just asks, give me all the tables, go out and produce, join that all together. And I guarantee you that while I have found things like this before on the internet, this was one of those AI assisted things. Here's what I have, here's what I want, how do I do that? And so you get all the nice comments and everything like that. Anyone ever put together a query like that before? Yep.
Yes, I have.
Then I'm thinking, okay, but I should have asked for size as well, because record count is one thing, but how much space is that taken up? So that's a homework project for somebody else to take on, I guess. So the second part of that was that I made an automation, and the automation, if we're going to take a look at it, but you could, if you wanted to implement mine and then expand on it, you could just grab this automation and import it into your system. But the automation, what we're doing, we've got an action that says how many days of history do I want to keep on some of these tables. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 tables that clean up certain things, and then I throw that out into the log. And so these 4 things are all essentially the same thing. It's saying delete from some table based on the days to keep being converted into a negative number. So it does the date math and finds a date 30 days ago, and then says any time that this was executed, that the execution time was before that date, then we're going to delete it. And it's also returning row count so that we can see how many records got deleted. So the Plant and App Audit DNN API Endpoint was a challenge for one of you might recognize this ticket. And we generate every call to an API ends up generating an entry point so that you can audit what's going on with your API endpoints. You can look at the table. But if you don't need that information, or I mean, it just continues to grow until you clean it up. So this is the cleanup. So a couple of interesting. So once we do that, that comes out as the deleted row count, which I'm then putting in. This was the API history records deleted variable token that I created, and I do that for some other tables as well, and then I'm just throwing an item out into the log when this runs that shows what the variable name and what got deleted. So I guess if we looked in the logs here, we'd see when this thing is running. That's not it. Here we go. So this ran at midnight here locally. So it didn't happen to delete anything, but it's throwing that out into the log. And the final characteristic of the, well, I say final, I'm running this with a trigger every day to run at 12:10 a.m. And But I've also chosen debug mode. And so what that does for me is that in addition to those things all being out into the log, which I did explicitly, they're also here in the history. And so, for example, when I look at the details of the job, there's a JSON output that shows what it did. It just takes all the tokens and dumps them out here into the log. So I don't know. A lot of little parts and pieces that might be a technique that might benefit someone. But so that was to deal with a particular request from a client, but then I was just thought I'd throw that as an open question. So I've picked out 4 different ones that I'm cleaning up. There's schedule history, which is, I'm pretty sure that's the DNN scheduler that just sits out and runs. And so nothing from Plant an App, but something that does need to be cleaned up. Eventually it can grow large, and it's just easy to set up something to keep 30 days of history. The event log is another one that I choose to clean up this way. So keeping again 30 days. The Sharp scheduler history is something that can, depending on how many jobs you have and how often they run, that can get quite big. So another one that's worth keeping clean. And then this DNN audit, DNN API endpoint. Anyone else have favorite ones that I missed in cleaning up that I should add to the list?
Hey Dale, Jerry here. No, you hit the popular ones for me, and yeah, I recognize your work for sure. The API endpoint audit for us got carried away quickly because um, as we write modern code, a lot of it is based on APIs now, and we have this mobile app that's attached to our our core data processing website. It has 20 or 30,000 users on the mobile app, all calling. The mobile app doesn't make a move that it's not calling one of my APIs and extracting the data and feeding the mobile app. So much to my surprise yesterday, I'm doing exactly what you would expect me to be doing a little quality check on the server and seeing what files are causing the backups to slow down. And lo and behold, that file had risen itself to second place on our system with 14 million records.
Yeah.
And so I spawned that question: is it safe to truncate it, or is it safe to just trim it and manage it without doing any damage? I had not seen that file before, so it must have gotten introduced in one of our later updates during the Plan App journey that we've been going through that you're aware of. My comment on that is that file, the scheduler file, the DNN Sharp scheduler file. Yeah, you need to keep an eye on those, because particularly this new audit API endpoint, if your website is driven through APIs, which that's kind of how Plant App thinks now when you're doing all of our low code wonderful things. It's creating these APIs. So that file can for us can get big quick. Dale, I emptied the file a couple hours ago, and I'm already up over 10,000 records back in it a couple hours ago. So I'm growing at that rate. So I may have to be trimming back. My scheduler may have to run every 5 or 6 hours or every day at least to keep it, kind of tight and right. But to your point, that is a wonderful file now that I've discovered it. There's things inside that file that will let you know what APIs are getting hit the most, and with just a little bit of cleverness on it, you can use that to your benefit to know where your website's getting hit. So for that, I appreciate that log file. I do, and thanks for this wonderful explanation. This People need to adhere to this. This is very important.
So Ben, you have your hand up, and we like politeness around here.
Hey, well, you guys know that I've hit these same log issues as well, and I just have to agree and also jump in with Jerry's comment that especially that API one. We used APIs for a while, but at some point we know that this API log was added in, and I wasn't aware of it until similar to Jerry, all of a sudden my database backups were blowing up, and I was trying to figure out why. And that API log table was massive. We don't even have as many users as you do, Jerry, but let me tell you, I'm actually truncating that log every 30 minutes because there are certain APIs that like one user may call 30 different APIs in a space of like 5 seconds, all because of just the way things are kind of written. And every one of those calls is logged. So it grows like crazy fast. So I have to, like I said, jump on that bandwagon and say, yes, that API log for people who are using APIs definitely need to keep an eye on it.
So I'm taking a note to look from the perspective of our product team whether we have any plans to introduce some form of automatic truncation of that within the product, just because it shouldn't be a surprise to it shouldn't be something that if you're using APIs, I mean, by default, it would be great if there were some truncation that you could enable or disable and not have to create a job for it or get surprised by it.
I think there's a feature request for that.
Probably. It does sound like something we talked about before. So I choose to look on the flip side of what Jerry just said, which is you're running a site with 20-30,000 users and it's rocking and rolling and hitting serving up well under pressure. So I'm glad to hear you've got a Plant an app that or a mobile app that's being responsive to a very large community. Cool.
Yeah, I just think it's kind of at least for me, it's kind of the new way of thinking that instead of doing a lot of your table inserts and updates inside of your action form or wherever you may be calling it, in today's world where we're having to interface with so many other people, my style has tended to create an API for that job, even if it's not really being called outside of our own world. But if somebody does want to interface with us, I have the APIs already created in their form. Should we need a third-party person to get data from us or put data into our system? And because of that mindset, and then the way Planta app not automation, let me back that up. The way the new Planta app low code way of thinking is, as we're automatically creating these forms and inserts and deletes and those are all calling our own APIs. So I would imagine that log file, even on a system that doesn't have external forces like our mobile app, that log file is going to grow quickly. And but again, before you get really excited and say, well, we got to truncate it every 30 seconds, look at it from time to time. And because it showed me where everything was running good, that gave me comfort. I had 14 million records and they were all successful. So I was doing really good with my stuff.
You could run some fun SQL on that to see where the demand was, and you could even
Yes,
be checking for problems, or I think there's IP addresses in that as well.
there is. There is. And
Probably
and
get
I
it
actually
down to
saw
the
that and
users
built that exact code that you're talking about to just kind of keep an eye on inside my mobile app in particular, where are my people, what's happening the most, and what areas could possibly be the most potentially dangerous to all of us if it were to fail. And so the log file I think is very critical that we have it. But again, certainly guys, everybody on this call will know how to manage it, but it would be pretty cool if to the layman person, yet another um, addition to low coding would be if there was a switch in it somewhere that said, okay, keep this purged off every 30 days or 90 days or whatever. But other than that, great job. Thank you.
I just
So
wanted to comment that Jen has a pretty cool use case for that, and a while back we just discovered that it was there, and it was really useful for her. So Jen, I don't know if you want to talk about it, or I can just mention it real quick.
Oh, just go ahead. Yep.
Yep. Okay, yeah. She issues API keys to various external parties, and she needs to keep track of their usage of the API key, and so that table does exactly what she needs to do. So it's a perfect thing for her. Well, does she need to truncate it? Yes, it needs to be truncated, but she also needs to see the usage of the APIs.
Right. So, for example, that might be for compliance reasons.
Oh, for us, it's reporting
Reporting.
too, because I mean, the board is just curious about how the API is being used. Sometimes we have to justify, the work that we put into something, but also only group member drop zones are allowed to be using it. And so, just several things around the API that they want the information on.
Yep. Ben has found the hands up button again.
Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to mention. I mean, I could see if I could throw it up on the campfire contributions. I did write something that is used in automations that actually breaks it down to even the API level of how many records you want to retain. So like mine that runs every 30 minutes, I could say this particular API, I only want a maximum of 10,000 entries, per day or something like that. And it will truncate it, but it will leave you enough historical information to the level that you want.
Yep.
And it's, usable per API. So you can set your settings so that each particular API, depending on how heavily it's used, you can limit so that it doesn't get too crazy. I'll see if I can pull that out and make it something that could be easily importable on a contribution.
Thank you. Matt, you too.
Yeah, this is just a kind of a related note that what's happening in a lot of the software world from a commercialization standpoint is instead of charging developer fees, these, let's say the ERP companies are moving away from those types of fees and moving toward pay per use on API usage. And as a result, if any of us happen to have the commercial type software that others might access, then we have the tools built in to start tracking utilization, kind of back to Jen's point, what she's doing.
Absolutely. You could link this up to some billing and go with that. So also kind of talking about the pattern that, the fact that this is becoming a more popular design pattern, some of the changes that we've made in this current version 126 includes this endpoint URL, the ability to make modifications to it. So if you wanted to create a version 1 of the location call versus a version 2, which is a pretty standard design pattern you see in other API providers, that now we support that as well, and so you'd be able to see, for example, who's still using your version 1 API and things like that. So it all kind of ties together. Good. All right, so that's out there to look at. Let's see what else. Thank you. Some of you used our, we talked about it last week, this other contribution about comparing versions and DLLs, and sometimes it turns out to be warnings, sometimes it turns out to be things that were really needing to be addressed or that will be addressed automatically by the software. So thanks for jumping in and posting those, your results on those. We'll get better at all of that. What's next? Oh, so there was another question. This was a question that Ben had created some time back and wanting to set to have a IP whitelist. So if you have if you have a locked down server and we need to call out from Plantin app to get updates, and so these are the services that we need, or the domains that we access in order to get those kind of things. So it's the dl.dnn sharp, the DLL Plantin app, services Plantin app, console Plantin app, all these sites. And so I've been trying to get better about as we get these questions and realizing that other people might need that kind of information, trying to write articles about that and getting it into the documentation. So Ben, it's here for you. And if anyone finds, we think this is exhaustive at this point. We thought it was exhaustive, and then Ben found 2 more and we've added it to the list. So, but we'll try and document these things for folks. So thanks for asking. What else? Did anybody come up with a first? Oh, Jim raised his hand. Let's go.
Well, just a clarification on that IP whitelist. So those names I could put into my firewall if I have a hosted Plantain app, a hosted Plantain app instance. Is that what that would be used for? So that something coming from one of your hosted instances would be able to get through to a database or something?
I think this is the other way around, that we call, and Ben, you can confirm, not complain, you can't complain, you can confirm. But I think this is where we call out to say we need information about Plantain app, the updates, and then be able to download from, and their firewall was blocking an outbound to us. I don't think you need an inbound access from us.
So I have some external databases that if that have a firewall on them, it would be nice to be able to go the other way if we knew where the call was coming from. If that's consistent.
Good. So I was going back to, anybody had something you wanted to talk about? Because we're just lurching from my topics here. If you don't. All right. Don, who couldn't be with us today, but asked a question this morning that I thought was real interesting. I hadn't solved before, and so I thought it was an interesting one to try to, and also an interesting use case. So I learned a little something, and I thought I would pass it on as well. So Don has a book that he's got some content from that are in P tags, and he was trying to get access to these things. So he put it into put an XML on the top of it, and then used our XML to JSON kind of an action to be able to get access to, and what he got access to, and I'll go ahead, and he had gotten this far, to be able to this is converting it to JSON, and then getting this was pulling one element out of it, but it's an array. And so the part where he was trying to get to is to be able to get access to each individual element of the array, and it's in an unnamed format, right? This is just, let me see if I've got this visually. Yes, here. So it's an array of elements, but they're unnamed elements, and how do you get to them? And I didn't know, so I had to experiment with this. You guys probably already know this answer, but you can put that into a create list from JSON out of this, and then get, so now you're going to have 3 items, but because it's unnamed, it's like, what's the syntax to access it? And so anyway, let's go to the answer here. So the actions are, we're taking this is how far he'd gotten. We're taking the content from chapter, this XML, and putting it into chapter JSON using a parse XML into JSON. He had retrieved, and I'm doing it here, I'm putting it into a variable split, but taking that chapter JSON and pulling out chapter.p gets this much. And then here's where I helped out. You can create a list from JSON from chapter.p, and that gives us chapter list. And now it's iterate. You can use chapter list to iterate through. And the part that I didn't know is that just the base token chapter list gives the content of that one unnamed element. So first of all, does any of that make sense? And did everybody know that but me? Patrick, would you have been able to see this one?
I had used that method before, yes.
Okay. So because I didn't know the answer, this one that I've written and which is actually now becoming part of our product, that where you can take everything that's in your context and put it out. I did that. I used that and put it into tokens. And so I did this in the midst of this action list. And so this was being executed once for each of those three elements that are in there. And so before I came to this conclusion, I was just getting a dump of what the current state of things were. So if you stare at this, what we see is that the output of that, it's getting chapter list index value 2, because that's 0, 1, and 2. And then I could see the thing that I wanted, Cynthia called Mrs. Inglethorpe, was just in a token called chapter list. So I could, when I couldn't figure it out myself, I didn't want to take the time to guess. You no longer have to guess if you use this functionality to, sorry for scrolling around so much, to get context tokens JSON. And again, we're about to publish this action. This is the private one that is available on Campfire, but it's about to become part of the product. You can see what's there and then kind of say, oh, here's the next thing that I need out of that. So anyway, interesting use case going from XML, or this could be HTML, right? If you had, if you just wanted to start parsing through a page that you read off the internet, you could use this technique to convert the HTML into JSON, and then start walking through them and pull out the attributes that you wanted. So there's interesting use for that.
That looks good, Dale. You see numerous cases where I would be using that.
Yeah, and I've gotten used to thinking of JSON as content with keys. You have a key name and a value, and another key name and a value, and that kind of array in structure, and that non-named, non-keyed, trying to figure out how to walk through that. It's just the token without just the base token without any subtokens. It holds that during the list. Anyway, just a point of there's a hole in my knowledge, I guess it
Are you going to put that up in the contributions also, Dale?
was. I hadn't thought about that, but we could do that. And
Yes, I have a use case for that because we do a lot of parsing of pages. Your comment of being able to go grab like a vendor website page and parse out information from it.
yep. So I've come to the end of my list, and so it really depends on you guys to ask questions. But if you don't, we could take a minute and turn this into a contribution, using up our allotted time here, just so that it gets out there, and maybe see how to create contributions if you want to independently do that. But anyway, I'd still rather go with yours instead of you watching me work. Okay, here we go. So I have taken to just I get the opportunity to add quite a few. I've started to divide them up by years. So I'm going to just create a new page for this under my little section here. And so we'll add a page. And I'm not going to add anything in here. It's just going to be an empty one to start with. And we'll put an action form on the page. And let's grab this whole thing. Being a lazy guy, I'm going to use this same technique to go grab the content. Back to Campfire and use an import over there. And just paste it in here. So we've got it over here. So now it just requires a little bit of explanation, but the technique is there. It works. We just need, I'll go back and add some words. What is this thing doing? But then once you have a page established on Campfire that you want to publish, we can just go to contributions page and add a new one. So now it's here as a contribution. You can put go and it goes to the page, and so we'll add some explanation, but here it's at least out here, Jim, for you to take a look at how we did that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, I thought I had more things to talk, but not more than enough to cover the hour, but I don't. So it's up to you now.
I have an idea
Yes,
that I
Jen.
want to do. Patrick's gonna go, oh no, Jen, stop. Because I always have ideas and then I have trouble implementing them because they get too complicated. So my idea was a use case for AI, and just wondering, I know the AI that we've been presented with that, we're still trying to come up with a lot more use cases to convince my boss that it would be great to implement here, but I thought of another one. And that is, would it be possible for like our educational offerings? We have lessons and everything. And so if somebody takes a quiz, it could be like a short answer instead of multiple choice. And then the AI would be able to grade the answer compared to what would be kind of the correct answer or the lesson content itself. And I've kind of done a little testing of this in ChatGPT, and it does seem like, hey, yeah, that could actually work with a little bit of teaching it and trying to structure it the right way. But I just feel like from an educational standpoint, a person elaborating on what they know about something is going to more test them than just guessing at a multiple choice. And I would really love to offer this. This would be like, I think pretty innovative, and it would be also another use case for AI, but just kind of wondering like what you think about that in relation to what you already have developed for the interface and stuff.
So I absolutely agree that it could be, and it's interesting. I just kind of thinking about so we've got a random page in the documentation. If we go and take a look at just interactively. So so first stage one, I'm getting it to ask the questions. Some of these questions don't look that great, but at least it's a start. And let me see if I can. I got a 20 on the test. How about that? So I think it would be possible, and I really have been thinking about something like this for a different project that I'm working on, and the idea I think you've got some prompt engineering that would need to happen, right? Because
Right.
you've got this content, you've got this, and so maybe you would say the correct answer to this question, it should contain in some words or in some way should encompass these uh, three things at a
Yeah.
minimum, and this fourth thing is a bonus. Uh, so the better that you tailor the AI's direction. But yes, then from there, I believe you could get it to do a great job at not only processing through their answer, but suggesting,
Giving them feedback. Yeah.
giving them feedback, or maybe asking a follow-up question, which if they have, it's depending on the circumstance, to be able to say, you got those things right, but what about this? And then let them answer. That it could demonstrate whether or not they knew it, and there might be partial credit, that kind of thing. So yeah.
That's yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to come up with use cases because I'd really love to have this. But this one seems like it could be pretty easily implemented, I guess, right? Because how this gets implemented in our website, like we would have a place where people would be presented with a lesson, and then you would have a particular, a separate place where they would be quizzed. And then you'd have like a workflow that calls the AI, or how, big picture view on this, by the way. I don't need a lot of detail, but is that how it happens? Is like I can just, program my own kind of quiz page, and then I call a workflow to give a response, or how does that work?
So would be interested for Patrick's feedback as well. For me, I would definitely make it data driven. So I think relative to a topic, you would have pre-developed quiz questions, and within those questions would be, here's what they an open paragraph or an open text to say, this is what demonstrates mastery, so that from a plant and app standpoint, presenting that on your website, you select a quiz question and you ask the question, you get the answer, and then with AI, you get to submit you're submitting a question to AI for evaluation. And so you would be able to say, this demonstrates mastery. This is the answer I got. Did they demonstrate mastery? And AI could come, and now it comes back to how do you get asking how you ask that question from AI so that it is useful to you. For example, I would perhaps ask it to respond in JSON so that you could parse the answer. And
Yeah. So what we do in developing assessments is we actually create rubrics, which they're kind of like a matrix that have the left-hand side has the qualities, and then it has like however many columns you want, like 1, 2, 3, 4. And inside each of the blocks, you say, what does it look like if the answer, like if I'm going to score somebody a 3, well, what would their response look like? And I could see building a rubric as the way that AI could assess the actual score, an
yes.
actual number, because you need a pass, you need like a benchmark at least for pass fail. Like number, fine, but at least we need a number to have it be pass fail, like it has to meet this kind of standard. But then if you have multiple questions, some people may get like a 1 or a 2 on one answer, but they get a 5 on another. Then you would overall say, yes, I feel like they passed the lesson. So it's like this a little bit more complicated than just that. But I could envision it being like a rubric,
and
which
I
is pretty
think
familiar
that
with educators.
if you were to develop that rubric you're doing it with the idea that you're going to enact AI or add AI to that equation, but you could do it from a manual perspective as well, right? So you're asking the question, you're getting the answer, and now you as the subject matter expert I've got this data in my tables that represents the rubric. Here's the answer I got. How would I judge their performance. And then you add AI to the mix and test to see that it would.
And that would be the teaching of the AI to be able to align with what you are expecting it to do by
exactly.
rubric, which
And
is
that
really interesting because actually I've actually built a rubric based. I've actually said, "Hey AI, here's my list of things. Can you build me a rubric?" And it will actually do that. And so it's almost kind of interesting. I could actually do both and then tweak it and then see if I'm teaching it correctly.
yes, and
Yeah.
and so like I say, it has a lot to do with, I mean, I call it prompt engineering, but
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
making sure that the questions you, at the end, you've got to make sure that the way that the questions that got asked, the way they got answered, that it does it the way you would have done it. And if it, my bet is it could come very, very close. We've done shown some things in these different events where getting AI to make judgments about success that that does a really great job. So, yep, implementing it sounds like a really great use case.
Well, thanks.
Hmm. Great. 8 minutes to do anything we want with.
We probably shouldn't talk about Patrick on the beach with bikini-clad women.
No such
We know
thing
that's
ever happened.
really where he went, right?
No such thing ever happened.
Well, with that, I'm not gonna force it. Let's start Afterglow early. I hadn't done all of my homework. I'm still trying to work our way through the playlists, but I hadn't, our plays for what's the recommended um, internal use for how we use Plantain app, but hadn't gotten there yet. So we'll put that one until next time. We'll do another one of those. Thank you all for your 53 minutes of interesting conversation. Hang around for a few minutes for Afterglow. And aside from that, we'll be here again in 1 week and we'll maybe have some even better topics to talk about. See you then.